So thanks for dropping by, as I said. Good morning. Today we are going to have a webinar about EqHub's API and its capabilities. We've set aside 30 minutes, but fairly confident that the webinar will be slightly shorter. Also, as you see, we set off some time at the end for Q&A. And I'll mention again that the meeting will be recorded. Today, it's myself, André Walland from Offshore Norge, together with Katrina Panchenko, my colleague, who will take you through this webinar. First step of the agenda today is to give you an introduction of the API or of API in general. So we are expecting that quite a few of you are attending because you have an interest in this. Others we anticipate not being really sure what this is about, and others potentially being fairly more proficient in this technology than us. So we want the webinar to accommodate all different audiences. So it's not a very, very in-depth technical webinar. It's a brief introduction, as the agenda also states. Once we introduced the API concept, we are going to take you through some examples of how the API can be used. Moving on from that, we are showing you how to get started. We'll also fit in a small video that my colleague Rodion Gorbonos has made. And then we'll transition to the final part, which is the Q&A session. So if you have questions along the way now at any point, please just raise them in the chat. If we don't manage to answer all of them during the Q&A, we will make sure we answer them in a separate follow-up email to those who have attended. Again, I'll say that this recording will be made available after the webinar, and will be put on YouTube, among other channels. And also, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules to participate in this meeting. So now, introduction to the EqHub API. So what is this API? EqHub offers a widely accessible REST API. And we do this through Azure API Management. What is an API? It's just an application programmable interface. So you will be able to interact with the service. And the REST component here represents the representational state transfer. So that means that when you ask for information, you will get information available at the point of you asking for it. That's the intent. Currently, the new generation API supports the following HTTP method: GET. Okay, set aside from the post feature here, you are able to get information from EqHub using the current endpoints. In the future, in the near future even, based on what the audience and the users need, of course justified and according to budget constraints, we aim to accommodate additional methods such as posting, patching, putting, and deleting. Or the authentication is through Auth2. The current API is compatible with legacy data structure, meaning that the old legacy ShareCat that we now have remade will be accommodated through the new generation API endpoints that we have available now, shown here on the right side. Point here is that if you are consuming already or have been consuming or set up interfaces with your own systems and business processes from before against the legacy EqHub, you should be able to transition easily into the new generation without having to, and again, without having to redesign your approaches. So that means that the data structure as you found it in legacy will be structured in the same way when you're interacting with the new API for a certain number of endpoints. Currently, the API for the new generation is used by 16 companies. Don't think anything has happened here in the last few days. And we have operators, contractors, and third parties interacting and exploring the API and the information that is made available through this interface. Our objectives is to allow user organizations such as yourselves to have meaningful consumption from the system and interaction with through an API. For those of you that find that relevant, those are the ones we want to cater for. For it to be a successful service and offering, we need it to be, and so do you, reliable and maintained, meaning that you will get what you're asking for and what you expect with accuracy at any given time. Second point also, seamless, efficient, and secure. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, we would like to see continuous adoption. We want to see you challenge the current setups. We want you to come with needs and wants and so on, and drive the further development of this feature or offering. And the overall aim is for you to have a more efficient way to do your things, to not have to rely on manual inputs. You can use this API if you want, and if you can, and if you have the capacity and resources to do so in a way that makes your daily processes more efficient. This is the gist of it, right? And we also want to allow our API to support other applications within the Offshore Norway portfolio. And this is what it's about. Moving on to capabilities, we'll now show you a few examples. They are, for some of you, very simplistic, and others might be confusing. Again, it's just an illustration of what this actually is and what capabilities you have potentially. So, for example, a data provider or someone who is entering or providing information or updating information in the system might use the API to get an overview of EqHub IDs, so-called products, as registered in EqHub, from all time or from a specific set of time. This is up to the use case that you see fit, of course. You might also be interested in getting an overview of the various verification status on something that you have submitted. So, for example, ABB submits 10,000 records for a given project, for a delivery, and they would like to more efficiently understand when and if their delivery has been ticked off as approved by the verification processes in the system. They can do that with an API. They don't have to, again, but it's possible. So once you formulate here on the left side a request, something that you would like to get, as long as the request has been formulated correctly, the API will send back a response to you with the data that you're asking for. If you're asking something that doesn't understand, you will get an error message typically explaining that what you're trying to do doesn't make sense or you're missing some information. Down the line, we also hope, again, based on your actual needs, is that we can accommodate a post method for you. It's not here on the left side, but the company Able has been very vocal about this. It's something they would like, where they can, instead of going into EqHub and do manual registrations, they can set up registration process through a post method from whatever system they have on their side to create IDs for products, to submit documents, to revise documents, and so on. Once the attempt to do something like that, to create, the EqHub will revert with a confirmation or that what you have tried to do has succeeded. Here's your receipt. And then that information can be consumed by and used by your systems there on the left side. The second example that we have is how can this be used potentially from a data consumer perspective? For example, an operator or an EPC contractor. It's the same thing. Most of this would be tied to GET. The consumers want to have information real time, anytime there's an update, a relevant update rather, on the information that they are interested in. They could ask and set up a myriad of different GET requests, and they can be formulated quite detailed. The examples I hear that I've included here are quite simple. They can be more detailed than that. So, for example, you can get an overview of all EqHub IDs, or you could specify it to only show you EqHub's IDs created within a certain time, or since a certain date, or any other kind of parameter that is relevant. If you find now, exploring this later on, that there are certain things here that would make sense to have included based on the requests that you guys are trying to make, give us some feedback on that, and then we'll probably work that in somehow. Other examples: get an overview of verification statuses for certain or all IDs, overview of documents, so-called document IDs, an overview of manufacturers and to which extent these manufacturers have registered products or documents. There's also a legacy use case here that has been used by a couple of companies, which allows you to get an indication of the so-called quality status of a certain or a specific ID. And once you've requested something that the API understands and sees that you are privy to, it will revert with a response where you get that information that you've asked for, and it's up to you then to do something with that information on your side. Getting started. So now you made today or tomorrow an assessment that this is something that you would like to get access to. You can go and have a look and start reading the documentation. But the very first step typically is someone submitting this. You submit an order form where you say who you are and what you need access to and why. Typically, just a basic justification. And you submit that form to support. Support will process that and check whether or not the request is valid. Fairly short processing time for that, and you will get access to the API. Then, once you have those credentials, client secret and client ID, typically you are able to interact with the API. Now, I'll show you what my colleague in the video tried to do. If you find your way to the API link, if you have it in an email or support sends it to you, you will typically end up here, and you might see that, well, there's nothing here, right? There's no API here. Don't worry about it. It just says here in writing that you need to sign up and self-register before you get access to this. So I'll show you. Sign up, right? You will get access to the documentation here, but it's important for us to understand who is actually exploring this. So once you've done a sign up, which is a simple who you are and what your own password, your own email, it can be your personal email, it can be a company email, doesn't matter. You can have 10 different ones if you want to. This is not something that we will, this is Azure managed. Once you fill in this one, you can log in directly. So I'll show you how that looks. For me, already signed in, I am now able to explore the APIs. And currently, these are the two APIs that are available to me. For this webinar, we're interested in the EqHub API. Going in here, you see the different endpoints or methods that are available to you at this time. You can also read the documentation here on how you need to interact with the API. Generate a token, get your proof of use, and then you can start using it. This is fairly technical, so it's you can attempt to try it out, but the guys typically who know what to do here are they know what to do. So this is like a bit technical. I want to show you an example of the structure here that we talked about earlier. Say you are interacting with this endpoint, you're getting product details of EqHub IDs. It will be presented to you in response, right? Structure, where you will have lots of fields and values tied to the information. This would be more or less the same information that you see when you're inside EqHub in one way or another, exploring data. It's just that the API allows you to just get to the gist, get information right away directly without the need for having a human to web service interface. You get the data directly. This is the point of this one. And yeah, it's available to anyone with a valid reason typically. So as I said, there's already 16 using it. If you feel this is relevant for you, please send a request and you'll get access in no time. For now, we have 10 minutes left, so we'll move on to the Q&A session. So I'll have Katarina take over the screen sharing, and I can go to the questions. You give me a heads up, Katja.
Yeah, I think that everything is okay, and we have some questions in the chat, so you can proceed.
Okay, good. Can you hide the screen share messages? It's obscuring the slides. Yeah, sorry about that. I've done that now, I think. And Kjell Skogsrud is asking, why are all the endpoints here listed as legacy? They are all listed as legacy because from end of May till now, still we are aiming for easing the transition. That's the main priority, to ease the transition for those companies that have set up interfaces with the legacy system. So as to not force you to redesign your interfaces, we have enabled or made available these so-called legacy endpoints, whereby you would only need to get new credentials, and then you will get the same information and the same way as before, plus also information from the new generation system. Yeah, do you have yeah, Kjell is typing. Bjarne Notland, when will the new endpoints, not legacy, be made available? We discussed this with the company last week as well, and the goal is to make them available by early to mid September. We'll share more information about that this week. Again, even though it's called a legacy endpoint, it doesn't mean that you can't use that in the same way. So yes, so we're planning to make a few select endpoints defined as necessary or wanted available in the next week or so. And Bjarne is typing some more. So Bjarne Notland is asking, will the new endpoints have the IDs as part of the response? Yes. Both current endpoints and new to-be endpoints would have the ID, the unique ID for the product, or EqHub ID is available in both the legacy endpoints and any future endpoint. And Kjell Skogsrud is asking, has previously used endpoints to access data from EqHub, but found the lack of IDs for correlated data difficult to use, i.e. the products have a class, but I cannot correlate this to a class when the ID is not passed. Not sure, Kjell, exactly what you mean here, but I will contact you after the meeting. I can also mention that tied to classes, we are working on an endpoint that will give you also full information on the requirements for any given class at any given time, including history. So that when you are looking up a class, a current class in EqHub, you will have the correlated or associated metadata to that class, i.e. When was it added, by what kind of version does it belong to, does it have any other alternative names, what kind of requirements are tied to it, and so on, and when was it last updated. So you have a class ID as well that will be made available. Sorry, Kjell, if that was not what you asked, but I will contact you later. Yeah, okay. Bjarne was typing some more, but you stopped. So if no one has any further questions, we will end the webinar 5 minutes early. Sonali now is typing. There's one more question here. We'll spend the full duration of the intended time slot here, as long as people are participating in the chat. Sonali Sahu is asking, is there any videos or tutorial to get acquainted with EqHub? Yes, I think I forgot to show that, but we have a dedicated channel. Yeah, Katja, thank you. On the screen now, my colleague is showing 3 different links. The left one is the LinkedIn channel where we post a lot of information relevant. EqHub.no, the center one, is the main page for information. We also have a YouTube channel. This is for several services, but I guess the most videos have been made on EqHub. So if you go to the right QR code there and scan that one, you'll be taken to our Material Management Services YouTube channel, where you'll find different playlists, and one is dedicated for EqHub. Also on the center here, Sonali, on the EqHub.no, there is a lot of documentation with explanation, and quite nice and easy to navigate and read presentation. So please check out these resources. And if there's something you find missing, be it API related documentation or otherwise, let us know, and we will put that in our backlog too. Yes, so Katja just typed in the EqHub.no. All right. Any other questions? No, I think not. Then again, thank you all for joining. Hope it was insightful, at least gave you an idea of what you can do with this. So hope to see you guys in a different setting sometime soon. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.